for this global conference. We're going to be having Dr. Adanna Steinacker. Just sit tight. We'll play a short video, a short documentary about Dr. Adanna Steinacker's work. And after the video, the next voice you'll be hearing is her voice. So sit down and watch.
Dr. Adanna Steinacker is the Senior Special Assistant to the President of Nigeria on Women's Health, a passionate advocate for gender equity and global health. With a background in medicine and public health, she brings years of experience working at the intersection of digital innovation, health systems, and social impact. Adanna is also widely recognized as a global speaker and content creator who uses her platform to empower women and youth across Africa and beyond. Through both policy and storytelling, she continues to champion better health outcomes, amplify women's voices, and inspire the next generation of change makers.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Adanna Steinacker, and it's a pleasure to be with you here today. It's also a privilege to open such an important gathering in a room so alive with possibility. Firstly, I want to say thank you to Dr. Chineku Ore and the Healthy African Girl Foundation for convening Rise Up 2025 and for trusting me to set the tone. To every young woman here, you are the reason that we're gathered, not just to talk, but to rise. This opening session is around the theme, becoming a voice of influence. Now, we live in a world today where influence can be mistaken for followers, fame, titles, or all of these metrics that we assign so much value to. But real influence is defined by the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone. And real influence is that quiet power that speaks for those still finding their words. So this moment, this gathering for the next 2 days is about discovering the kind of influence that shapes nations and generations, the kind that makes the world a better place. Unlike the speakers that have gone before me have iterated, it's about finding that voice that results in impact and change and a better world than we found it. I'm going to start off with 2 personal stories where I found my voice of influence. You saw the introduction. I have a background in medicine and surgery. And I'll tell you, at the time of going through medical school, qualifying as a doctor, practicing as a surgeon, it was a time where it was frowned upon for healthcare professionals to have a social media presence, because as you know, medicine back in the day really thrived off of the white coat syndrome, where doctors were the gods and it was everyone else. And so we thrived on the secrecy, not showing what's happening behind the scenes. And I challenged the status quo. I started on social media, leveraged my voice to share the behind the scenes. For me, I did that to inspire young African girls like me who wanted to study medicine, but specifically those who wanted to go into a career in surgery. Growing up as a young girl, I knew from the get-go that I always wanted to be a doctor. It was inspired by my grandmother. And when I decided to then start in medicine, and like I said to you, social media was not even a platform to share what was happening. But I challenged the status quo because I kept hearing, you cannot be a surgeon if you want to be a mom, if you want to have a family, surgery is for men. And I thought, I'm gonna do it because I want to. And whilst I'm doing it, I want to use my platform to share how I'm doing it in the hope that it inspires that other woman who wants to be a surgeon. And so I got a lot of backlash using my platform, sharing about medicine. But then for me, the defining moment happened during COVID, when there was a rise of COVID misinformation online. And I remember that one article that showed that in the US, about 90% of COVID misinformation was perpetuated by only 12 individuals that were able to reach 59 million people on their social media platforms. And again, at the time, telemedicine, the rise of telemedicine only came after COVID. So we still very much relied on the one-to-one consultation, which lasted about 10 minutes. And so when I did the math and I thought to myself, if you put 12 doctors in a room, how long would it take them to consult 59 million people? And you can imagine the answer was a couple of lifetimes. So suddenly I understood that social media could be leveraged as a public health tool to democratize access to information, to share more to share more evidence-based information around COVID. So I continued. And during COVID, leveraging my platform to share about health, to share about to share about what was happening in the health space, to debunk a lot of misinformation was one example where I found my voice, because what resulted was what resulted was companies like Google, Facebook, Meta, all of these tech platforms reaching out to me to say, hey, since you're a medical doctor and you have a social media platform, can we co-create a course for medical doctors to teach them how to leverage social media to debunk health information? And I'm sharing that story because at the time of making the decision to use my platform for good, I got a lot of backlash. I got a lot of discouraging messages, and I could have easily just backed out. But keeping on with it, carrying on, and finding that motivation to keep going resulted in partnerships, resulted in people saying, hey, how can you teach us to do this? That's one example. The second example I would say is my journey to becoming a women's health advocate. Personally, I have values deeply rooted in justice and equality. And when I went through medicine and I was going through my career, my training, I thought, okay, how can I use my profession? How can I use my passion? How can I use what the world needs and anchor to something that I'm so confident to keep going? And then I arrived at women's health advocacy. I don't know, some of you might know my social media presence, but at some point I decided to create health information in a way that was digestible, funny, but would also influence health-seeking behaviors. And so I was creating content that were funny, but at the end of the content, this funny content was health information that would give a woman the tool and the knowledge that she needs to live a healthier life. And suddenly that also led to partnerships, policy rooms, and today I've arrived in a role where I am advising about women's health on a national stage. And so the lesson with these two stories is starting small, but starting regardless of the fear. As a young girl as well, I always thought, I wanted to be a speaker. I wanted to talk about things. I want to make the world a better place. But influence is not loud. Influence is not about getting a platform where you have a lot of people and speaking about something that does not really make the world a better place. In all of my stories and all of my journey, I've found that the best way to be influential is to anchor that on purpose. And for me, that has been the one thing that has given me confidence to rise authentically. And I'll say that I wonder if a lot of you have come across the concept of Ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese model that overlaps with 4 questions. The first one is passion. What do I love? The second is your vocation. What am I good at? The third is your mission. What does the world need? And the fourth is your profession. What can I be paid for? When those circles intersect, it's not merely a career, it's a calling. That's where someone can find their purpose. And so when I mapped out my Ikigai, when I did all of the work, I realized that women's health advocacy was radiant in the middle. And so I made the decision. I gave myself permission to use my voice, to use my platform, to use every opportunity to advocate for the health and well-being of women and girls. And all of that journey has led me to where I am today. And all of this to say that when we choose to rise up, it's very easy for us to say, use your voice, overcome the shame, just go, just do it. As someone who was there before starting, I realized that no matter how much one tells you, just go for it, you're still going to have those restrictions, you're still going to have the personal fears, you're still going to have the discouragement. But the one thing that has made me overcome all of this is making sure that my voice and that my rising is anchored in purpose. And so I encourage everyone here, every girl and every woman that's in the conference today who's feeling inspired by using her voice. It's not about just going on social media, turning on the camera and saying anything you want. It's about doing that inner work, asking yourself, what is it that I want to do? What is my purpose? What is my calling? And I can assure you that the moment you decide on that calling, you will overcome all of the obstacles. When you have all of the barriers that come, whether it's you being overworked, being underpaid, your partnerships conversations not progressing, you will find that the one thing that keeps you going is your why and is your purpose. And so in the spirit of rising up, leading, using your voice and being that change maker, it's not about the title, it's not about the position, it's not about thinking, oh, who am I? How many followers do I have? What qualification do I have? It's really about you doing the inner work and deciding that I will take that first step. We know the popular saying that the journey to 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So ask yourself, what will that first step be? And what is that first step anchored in? So as we go through the conference today, don't just listen, practice influence, ask the brave questions. When you come across speakers here and you have an opportunity to interact or to ask questions, take the chance, overcome that shyness in this room, because that little step that you take today will lead to the mighty change that we want to see at the end. So I encourage everyone throughout this conference, introduce yourself to somebody whose story inspires you, post one insight about the conference that could help another girl who couldn't be here. But leadership begins with those micro choices that we make, starting with this. So I want to leave you with some affirmations as we go through what I believe will be an impactful gathering. And the affirmations are, I will lead with purpose. I will speak with courage. I am a voice of influence. And as Dr. Chineku Ore said in her opening, I am willing to rise. And so the rise begins now. I just want to say thank you and to encourage everyone here, make sure that you do that one thing that makes you uncomfortable, but realizing that it's anchored in purpose. I can assure you that every step that you make today is going to lead to something bigger in the future. Thank you so much, and I wish you a very enjoyable conference. Yeah, Seba.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adanna Steinacker. Thank you so much for that powerful session. Thank you for setting the stage. I think you've told us a lot of things that will help us through this 2-day conference. And so to everybody in the room, please, I want you to do one thing. What was the key highlights for you in this session? Can you put it in the comment section? Which action are you going to take afterwards?